Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Rim Runner with Bob Baskerville and Ryan Shumpert.
Welcome. Time for another episode of the RTI Rim Runner, our weekly look at what's going on, not just with Tennessee basketball, but basketball across the SEC and the rest of the country. Always love talking ball. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Bob Baskerville, joined as always by one of RTI's finest, Ryan Shumpert. Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm good. Starting to get a little jammed up as we close in on the holidays and everything. Just a lot going on, and I know I speak for a lot of people. It's just the way the month of December goes, but I'm hopeful that we'll get a little bit of downtime here in the coming days. But hey, it's not that hard of a life when what we're doing is talking about a sport we love and following the vols and everything else. So doing okay. And we do have a great show for you today. We appreciate you watching. If you're checking us out on video, you're watching us on the RTI YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Also, you might be listening to this as a podcast. That's great too. Make sure you download our podcast, add it to your collection, your library. We're available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Again, good show for you today. The headliner, of course, is we're going to talk about Tennessee's statement win over Louisville on Tuesday night, a game that Tennessee desperately needed to kind of get back on the good foot, and they did. We'll break that down a little bit, but then we're going to take a wider view of what's going on in college basketball as conference play has begun in some conferences, and it's certainly going to begin for the other power conferences here by the beginning of 2026. So we're going to do a little bit of a power rank, or maybe of who we're feeling are the top teams in the country so far, and maybe even rank the conferences a little bit as well. So a lot to talk about today for sure. Let's get to our opening tip. So as I mentioned, the headliner for us after an extended break off the heels of a 3-game losing streak, Rick Barnes and the Vols bounce back with a statement win over number 11 Louisville, running the Cards off the floor at Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center. Final score, Tennessee 83, Louisville 62. Top line review of the keys to this win. And I think that they were ones that were kind of staring us right in the face, Ryan. I mean, Tennessee leveraged their advantage in the paint, their size, as far as what it meant on the offensive side, but also shutting them down in the paint on defense and resurrecting that signature Rick Barnes Tennessee defense to stifle Louisville. And then get really solid performances off the bench, and not just from one or two guys, but from multiple guys.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you came in looking at this matchup, and it felt like Louisville had a pretty clear advantage on the perimeter, and Tennessee did, really a tremendous job of mitigating that and not making, really coming, going even, if not having the advantage in the end with how their guards played compared to Louisville's, but certainly held their own. And you looked and said Tennessee needed to be able to control the game inside and be able to get offense inside, especially because it felt like a game Tennessee was going to need to score 83 points to win, not 63 points to win. And it felt like they were going to need to be able to do it with a lot inside. But at the same time, you looked at Louisville and maybe the roster build, they're not super big inside, and certainly they've played a number of bye games, but their 2-point defense is really good. Their rebounding numbers have been solid, so it didn't feel like just a foregone conclusion that Tennessee was going to be able to do that. So for the Vols to come out, and for Jacoby and Gillespie and Nate Ament to battle foul trouble, and I think they combined for 7 points in the first half, and not that Tennessee's offense was just fantastic, but they got enough of Jalen Carey, they got enough of JP Estrella. I think maybe it was 28 of those 34 points in the first half came into paint. Tennessee was able to just stay consistent inside and keep chugging along offensively inside. And then when they got those guys, especially Gillespie, going in the second half, they were able to run away with it.
Yeah. Look, Tennessee got an early break when Louisville's 5-star freshman point guard, Mikel Brown, was a late scratch with lower back issues. but we knew what to expect from this team going in. I'm not going to lie, after watching them, Louisville play Memphis over the past weekend, they just absolutely torched the Tigers. And Memphis is not one of their vintage teams by any stretch. They're not very good. But some of the things we saw from Louisville in that game: 18 of 35 from 3-point range, 24 assists on 30 made baskets. I mean, they were dialed in, and it was a little nervous making for me just watching that, saying, okay, that's who we've got to play. But again, it felt like the message was clear, was to leverage some of the areas we have advantages on Louisville with, and that's what happened. Tennessee seized the opportunity, took one of those top offenses in the country, pulled them into the mud, holding Louisville over 30 points below their average points scored per game. I think the key here, Ryan, was, like I just said, they're in terms of volume for 3-point shooting, they're, one of the tops in the country. And so that perimeter efficient Cardinals offense, they only shot 21% from 3-point range on Tuesday night, 7 of 34. And that whole assist to made baskets ratio that I mentioned in that Memphis game last night against the Cards, Louisville had 8 assists versus 16 turnovers, and Tennessee converted those Louisville turnovers into a 21-9 edge on points off turnovers. So in short, I'd say welcome back to that signature Vol defense, but it feels like this was absolutely, without a doubt, we kind of saw it coming, but this was kind of a classic Rick Barnes game plan.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, two kind of thoughts on the defense. One, I'll get more specific and then broaden it out. We talked about it briefly, or at least I said in passing, that in the past, this Louisville game would be a little bit of an Alabama scout, and just how similar the two teams play. And we've seen Rick Barnes and Tennessee have Alabama's number, and it feels like the code to crack that Alabama offense better than anyone else has. And that's what it felt like watching last night. And I couldn't help but think the thing that, stood out about it was kind of what Tennessee just didn't have to help a ton. They were able to stay in front of the ball better, and when things did get funneled to the basket, have Felix Okpar there clean it up and not have to have guards help off and give a lot of open shots. And you mentioned, the assist rate. Even after last night, Louisville's assisting on 63% of their made baskets, which ranks 20th in the country. 8 assists on 22 made field goals last night. So 35, 36%, something in that range. And I think that speaks to what Tennessee's been able to do against Alabama in the past, against these rim and 3-point offenses, of not having to help off as much on the 3-point shooters and being able to protect the rim with, one, staying in front of the ball, and then 2, having guys like Felix Okpara and in some past games, Cade Phillips against Alabama, that is. Obviously, he was out last night, cleaning things up at the rim. So that, from a matchup standpoint, was something that stood out. But, Tennessee has struggled to defend the ball, has struggled to stay in front of the ball. So I didn't know if they'd be able to do that last night. And certainly having one less guy to worry about and Michael Brown helps. But, Adrian Woolley comes in the starting lineup. He'd be starting for just about every team in the SEC. I would guess. Maybe not Alabama. That would be the one other one that it would probably be a toss-up. So it certainly wasn't – it didn't get super easy just because of that. So I think that – and Jacoby Gillespie talked about it after the game. They wanted to get back to what Tennessee basketball is known for, being some dogs defensively. And, outside of Bishop Oswald, the Vols have really lacked that to this point in the season. And I think that was, again, just one performance, but a good sign of maybe this Tennessee team can be a little bit more steady than I worried they might be, with a defense that still isn't going to be as good as it was last year, the last 2 years, but looked a lot better last night than it's been.
Absolutely. I mean, at one point, by the way, we've been talking for a little while, at least on the radio, and, other folks have talked about Louisville's third. Last night he was their third guard. He's typically third leading scorer, Isaac McNeely. And we've been lamenting the fact that, Tennessee felt like they almost had him in the bag last season during the portal window, and he ends up going to Louisville. And feels like, God, that's a component we could really, really use here at Tennessee. He sure didn't feel like much of a fit last night in the Louisville scheme. Now, I don't think that's like a long-term problem, but it's interesting to see. He had, I think he scored did he score 2 points last night or 3? I
I
forget.
think he had 5. He made 2
Five.
baskets in the last 7-8 minutes when the game
Yeah.
was already over.
Yeah, and I mean, really, it came down to if the two guys, it was Ryan Conwell and Woolley, who you mentioned. They at
Yeah.
one point, I think Louisville had 46 points, and I think those two had combined for 37 of them. So they just didn't have many other options, and it was just like you said, it was good to see. The one thing I wanted to note too was, we talk a lot about the defense and how much of a difference maker it was. In the second half, the first half was a little choppy for the Vols offensively, but I felt like that was a really, I felt, I wouldn't say like some sort of level of perfection with the offense in the second half, but they looked good, man. They shot 58% from the field, 60% from three in the second half, even almost 80% from the line in the second half after an absolutely god awful first half at the free throw
Yeah.
line.
Well, you get Jacoby Gillespie shooting the free throws. It looks a lot better. It
Yeah,
works a
true.
lot. But that's the problem. Nate Amit's the only guy that gets to the line consistently
Mhm.
for Tennessee that's a good free throw shooter. Or Jalen Carey's probably going to be the guy that gets there to next most, and he's not a good free throw shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's twofold on the offense in the second half. I think one, you make some shots early in the second half to makes it look a lot easier. You have they had 3 threes and 70 seconds there, 80
Yeah.
seconds at one point as they kind of opened up the lead. That makes it look a lot easier. I thought there were a couple instances early in the first half, or early in the second half, back-to-back possessions. I think when Felix Okpara and Jalen Carey both had really good steals, let Jacoby Gillespie get to the basket and semi-secondary break, semi-transition, and then after that, Tennessee was able to shoot a lot of free throws. Louisville started gambling a lot defensively after they got down, and Tennessee did have some turnovers there, but generally took care of the ball well and was able to take advantage of that and get some good looks. And Gillespie get to the line. So yeah, definitely a step in the right direction there. And again, I think it's a lot of what it looks like for Tennessee and how good it can look for Tennessee offensively when things are going well for Gillespie and Amit.
Yeah, yeah. So Jacoby, kind of a slow first half. He and Nate both had some foul trouble, so they missed some minutes in the first half. But Jacoby finishes with 23 points, 5 assists. Nate, 13 points, 7 boards, 3 assists. The 13 points don't pop off the page. However, I thought he looked, particularly in the second half. I mean, you can definitely see when he gets a nice look and sets up. I mean, the shooting form's there. It's all these other things. It's just, again, particularly in that first half, he still feels like a little bit of a doe-eyed kid out there on the floor. I mean, that's just the reality. And I sometimes think, Ryan, that we may not, even with Nate Ament progressing, we may not see the very best of him. That may be a couple years down the line, and he'll be in the association when that happens.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. I don't think there's any doubt about that. His best basketball is well ahead of him. Yeah, to your point, 13 points isn't some huge night, but he scored 9 of them there in the first 8 minutes of the second half when Tennessee
Yep.
took control of the game. It felt like he played well in that stretch. He also had, the good assist to Berg on the 3 from that sequence that we talked about a minute ago where
Right.
he found him and put a great cross court pass, right into the shooting basket for Berg. So, yeah, he was good. You want to see it's the balance for him of he's not a great isolation player, so him forcing the issue at times can be problematic, but you just want him to be a little bit more consistent. And it didn't matter last night. Tennessee was up by 20 points once he had that nice stretch. But again, he has that nice 8-minute stretch. It kind of feels like he disappears a little bit at times or just isn't as assertive. So I think continually finding that balance, and he's talked about it. He talked about this in Las Vegas, I think, after the Rutgers game. Him finding the balance of letting the game come to him, trying to get his teammates involved with being aggressive and seeking a shot. I think it's just going to continue to be an evolution for him in an area he's going to get better and better with. But a lot to like about what he did last night. Obviously, like I said, in that stretch where Tennessee kind of opened things up.
Yeah. We have to give a tip of the hat to the not so regular contributors, the bench. Tennessee had a 34-3 edge in bench points. That sound right, Ryan?
Yes, I believe that's right. Yep, 34-3.
And Jalen Carey leads the way. We talked about it. You and I did about, Dwayne Brown got the start, but we assumed Jalen Carey was he was definitely going to get his minutes, probably more so than Brown. I thought, outside of the free throw escapades, God, he was good, man. 12 points, 10 boards, double-double, 3 assists, couple steals, and just they had no answer for him underneath. I mean, he is just so physically strong, and that's not a revelation. We knew that. But my God, man, Jalen Carey, it's easy for me to get behind that guy when he's playing like that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it a little bit, but the defensive stuff was encouraging last night. I felt like he was able to defend on the perimeter pretty well, or at least better than he has for a lot of the season. So he was really good. He continues to stack good games. I think we touched on the radio that feels largely like a message from the staff to him not starting. And Rick Barnes basically said as much. And by the time you're listening to this, I'll probably have an article on the site out about it. But this was quote, and I'll be bouncing around a little bit on Rick Barnes on Jalen Carey after the game. I think Jalen could be terrific. A double-double, he could do that every night, but you know what? He won't get there every night until he gets consistent in practice every day. That's the challenge. They want more consistency from him. They want higher intensity because he's playing really, really well, and they think there's even more there, which is an encouraging sign for Tennessee.
Definitely. So now the other guys, right? I mean, Ethan Berg and the Amaris, Evans and Abrams combined, I think, for 16 points. Ethan Berg, you've used the term before, and I agree with it. He's looked pretty much unplayable at times for Rick Barnes, but I thought last night, I don't want to confuse this with like he was a blowtorch or anything, but I thought he was productive while he was out there, and certainly Amari Evans was, with the exception of his personal foul rate in the game.
Yeah, I know Evans sometimes looks like he doesn't quite understand all the rules of basketball for what's a foul and what's not. But no, I mean, he, as a guy, you're not worried. Like you want to tone it down a little bit. You want him to play smarter, but it's like he got 2 fouls in the first half and he gets taken out. It's like, and he came back in and picked up a 3rd foul in the first half. But it's like, who cares? You don't need to lean on Amari Evans. He can pick up fouls, and you want him to bring that aggression and certainly more on the offensive end last night that he's given them. And yeah, I did think Berg was better. He just played a little more relaxed, a little less rushed. Still had 2 turnovers in 12 minutes. Though one of them was that really silly turnover where I think he was inbounding the ball and he stepped over the line, which was, look, the turnover issues were better last night. I think I said it's during the Illinois game. It's just some of Tennessee's turnovers are so mind-numbing. And it's now 2 straight games Tennessee's had a turnover with just not just inbounding the basketball, but breaking a rule while inbounding the basketball. It's not like it's gotten stolen. The pass has gotten stolen as they've thrown it in. So it's some of that silly stuff that needs to get cleaned up. But no, he looked better. I thought Amari Abram, his minutes were less last night. I do wonder some of that if his wrist is kind of banged up, if that had anything to do with it. But maybe not. And to the bench point and to what you said earlier, where Woolley and Conwell were the only guys who did anything for Louisville, really. In the first half last night, 9 different Tennessee players scored and just 3 Louisville players scored. So
yeah,
a lot more production across the board for Tennessee.
One more player I want to get your take on, because you look at his line, and I didn't think it was necessarily bad if you just look at it statistically, but Felix Okpara, 8 points, 3 steals, 3 blocks, some big rim protecting plays, of course, but I still felt like at times in the offensive flow, he looked kind of lost out there to me. Is that just me, or would you agree with that?
I mean, I think there were some times in general last night where Tennessee didn't feel like they were on the same page offensively about what they were running. So I wouldn't say that just on Felix. Yeah, the defense, to your point, I thought was back to where it needed to be. And the thing, if I was gonna, punch on Felix's performance more than anything, I would say the rebounding, could use to be better. I mean, he finally got his first rebound. I think it was like in the second half, or maybe it was his second rebound. Maybe it was late first half, but it was a Jalen Carey missed free throw, and he gets the rebound, and he brings the ball down low, and he immediately gets tied up with a guard. It's just like that's, if you're not gonna, that's on a night where you at that point in the game have whatever it was 0 or 1 rebounds. Like that's the type of thing that's maddening.
Yeah, no doubt. So in summary, Vols gravitated into a bit of must-win territory. It felt like, particularly when we learned Mikel Brown wasn't playing. And hey, man, the boys were ready to defend home court. They did it. They stopped the losing streak. Again, you and I talked for a minute about it prior to the show. I certainly had the belief that they could win this game. And we've seen them do it in situations before, not too long ago, when their backs seemed against the wall. Florida last season in Thompson Bowling Arena when they were down Zakai and Igor Milicic. But this one, to me, I have to say, winning was one thing, but winning in such a decisive manner kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, I think I just didn't see a world where Tennessee would hold Louisville to 62 points.
Right.
I didn't think Tennessee would be able to win big, maybe not comfortable. I thought they could maybe win comfortably, but truly big like they did, because I just thought Louisville would score too many points, and Tennessee is not going to go out there and score 100. So uh, I agree, but a good sign, a sign of what this team can be. It calms down some of the qualms, some of the questions about this team. Not that they're not still there, but
Yeah.
you feel a lot better. And a win Tennessee needed, because obviously SEC play, that opener, that next Power 5 test you have at Arkansas is going to be a really hard one. And you talk about pressure mounting. You get to that game, you hadn't won against Louisville. You lose that game. It could have very easily, the losing streak would have ended with Gardner Webb and South Carolina State, but the need to get a big time type win will take a little bit of pressure off Tennessee when the calendar turns to the new year.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So, you mentioned it, the non-conference is essentially over. There's two bye games coming up against one-win Gardner Webb, winless South Carolina State. That's how we close out 2025. But you would assume those are wins. Tennessee then improves to 10-3 going into conference. They already they rose in the Ken Pom rankings up to 15th overall, 12th in Bart Torvik. I don't think they've updated the net yet, but I will say this: having a 2-3 record in quad one games is kind of a critical development heading into conference play. For my money, I don't think people are going to remember, when the time comes to review Tennessee's tournament resume, that Louisville was without Mikel Brown. And I think Tennessee would have won that game anyway last night. But 2-3 in those quad one games looks a lot better than 1-4, I got to say.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it goes back to kind of what we'll touch on in a little bit, and you touched on it a bit a second ago, is there's going to be less opportunities for big time wins
Right.
in SEC play. Those quad one home wins. I mean, basically every SEC game last year was a quad one game, but you're going to have to go earn more of your quad one wins on the road in SEC play this year, which obviously makes getting those wins much harder. So that was big. And yeah, I mean, certainly Louisville's worst without Mikel Brown. But you see, I mean, just to your point a second ago, Zakai Ziegler, game without Zakai Ziegler and Igor Milicic last year, Tennessee beat the eventual national champion. And in small sample sizes, you see teams lose key players and go out and play really well and win games all the time. So certainly it's not going to matter in March when people look at Tennessee's resume. And it's, if Louisville people want to use that as an excuse, I do think it's fair, but I don't think Tennessee should feel any worse about their win because Louisville was without a key guy.
Yeah, no doubt. So my last question for you before we widen the lens is, and I know you're a pretty you're a pretty discriminating personality when it comes to this basketball team, and I say that respectfully. I don't think one game changes the whole narrative for this team, but does it shift your expectations at all about this team moving forward? Does it make you feel like, okay, that's what this team's capable of, but does that change our perspective of, hey, if they go do this all the time, this is a deep run tournament team? I'm still a little skeptical there.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it just made me feel better about having not hit the panic button after the last 3 games.
Right.
That's kind of where I was. Tennessee needs to play better. They haven't looked great. They have some issues, but I don't think this team's just bad all of a sudden. I still think this team is going to be a 4-5 seed type team. So it more than anything just makes me feel justified in that line of thinking that I had coming into the game, more than feeling radically different about what this team can be in the long term.
Yeah. One more thing I'll say, and I think you and I have talked about this before, but there was a moment in time in the summer when I saw Coach Barnes just out in public, and we were talking, and he had just gotten the transfer commitment from Jalen Carey, and I told him, I said, man, just watching him in those Vanderbilt games last season, I love that guy and love his motor. And he said at the time, and yeah, maybe I took it as a little bit of coach speak, but he said, he goes, Jalen Carey, he goes, that guy, if he does things the right way, could be the most important player on this team going into this next season. And I kind of wrote that off, but I don't know, man. After watching last night, it's clear we need a number 3 option. We can't put it all on Jacoby and Nate. And while Jalen's never going to be a, 25, 30-point guy, it's all the other things that he does. And I think you've heard Coach Barnes talk about Jalen, and that's, in that vein too. But last night, in watching that game, it kind of reminded me of what Barnes had said. And it was for me, it was kind of an aha moment. Like, he does kind of close the loop on a lot of things for this team if he's playing well.
No doubt. And, I think just looking at his stat line last night, if you make 4 attend at the foul line, even 6 attend at the foul line, it's pretty about as good as it gets, just across the board from that standpoint.
Right.
Of, closing all the loops and just doing a bunch of different things. He has 12 points, 10 rebounds, 4 of those on the offensive end where I believe, now he's the 4th best offensive rebounder in the country statistically. 3 assists, 2 steals, no turnovers. Like, he was just very, very sound all around. And, as far as him potentially being like, is he the true third option on this team? My natural instinct was say I think it's probably him and JP Estrella are co-third guys, and then I thought that looking at the rundown, and then I went and checked it, and it's funny, their usage rates are the exact same of 25.3% right now.
Wow. Yeah.
And the drop off from them to the 5th guy is to 16.5%. So it's that's where the drop off is. And I think Carey's been more consistent in these big games, especially with what he's been able to do on defensive end than Estrella. So I think he kind of naturally would get that one-up third guy, going to him over Estrella. But I think that third option's throwing the ball inside in the post, and certainly Carey and Estrella are the 2 guys that can score the best out of that.
Yeah, and speaking of JP, again, only about 8 or 9 minutes on the floor. You just attribute that to the continued kind of in-game rehab for him right now as we head towards conference.
I think more, because Rick Barnes said he's not on a minutes restriction. I think more it's like a fatigue thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's where he can get better defensively, because I thought early in the game he was good defensively. Got on some switches. He gave up a bucket on one, but generally made it hard. And then in the second half, and maybe in some stretches where he was playing a little bit more at a time, he just got blown by, had some bad fouls at the basket. He struggled defensively, and
yeah,
I think that defense is probably why he only played 9 minutes. And I do wonder if the fatigue, as he kind of gets back into it, plays a little bit of a role, because I thought he was much better defensively in the first half than he was in the second half.
That's a really good observation about the fatigue, and I hadn't even thought of that. Just, there's no matter how much conditioning you're doing, it's just a different level once you're in game like that. And yeah, you're right. Particularly, I guess it was in the second half, man. There were a couple plays where I was like, oh my God, man, what just happened there? I mean, he looked lost.
Yeah.
So, but gotta love that little soft 8 to 10 footer he's got, because that thing feels almost automatic. So would just love to see him get more minutes. So moving on to, again, kind of a bigger view, the big thing for today, as conference play draws near for just about everybody, it's underway for some conferences. We're going to take a moment and give some of our top line thoughts in ranking the strength of the Power 5 conferences, and which one is the best this season, and where does the SEC fall? And then we're also going to talk about, Ryan and I will both kind of point to who we feel so far as we close out 2025 are the top 5 teams in the country. We'll do the RTI rankings. Forget the AP. Who are those guys? We're going to do our own. But let's talk a little bit about the conferences, Ryan, because you don't have to look too far, you can look at that AP poll that I just referred to, and I mean, you look at that top 10, and it is littered with Big 12 and Big 10 teams. And with all due respect to our conference, the SEC, last year it was, like historically good as a conference, and this year it's very good, but it's measuring up to last year's output or productivity as a conference, it's not the same. It feels to me like if you're looking at the two best conferences in college basketball, really, to me, I'll just give you my rankings and see where you net out. I think the Big 12 is just far and away right now. They look so good. I mean, they might have some teams at the bottom not doing well, but their top tier is just outstanding. You could argue they could have a Final Four just of Big 12 teams, honestly. And then I think the Big Ten's right behind that. But and meanwhile, ACC gets better. Big East is going to be a down year, it feels like this year, but feels like the SEC is probably situated in that third or fourth best conference ranking from my perspective. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's definitely no worse than third.
Yeah.
Just because of the depth of the league, and yeah, I think it's the top half or the top tier, I guess, more than the top half, is definitely much better in the Big 12 and the Big 10. I mean, in the Big 12, it's you look at it and you're like, man, conference expansion was good to these guys in hoops, which I think we kind of knew it was at the time. But
Right.
Arizona, BYU, Houston, and on top of Iowa State, Kansas, Texas Tech's been a little bit disappointing, but is still good. And then I think you say the same thing with the Big Ten. That top line of the conference with Michigan and Purdue and Michigan State's got to be as good as it's been in a long time in the Big Ten. I mean, that's always been the Big Ten's kind of always been like what the SEC is this year. It feels like where they've got 8, 10 pretty good teams, and there's not a ton of easy outs, but there's just not a real national title contender. But that's not really the case this year. And it is interesting. We touched on this on the podcast with Kevin 2 weeks ago. KenPom still has Tennessee, or the SEC, excuse me, is by far and away the best conference. And I just think it's a depth standpoint where you look at the SEC. I think it's the two worst teams in the conference by far: South Carolina and Mississippi State. I don't know if you saw Mississippi State barely escaped Long Island at home last night.
Yeah.
They're just bad. They just don't have much. Those two teams are 87 and 88th in KenPom. The next lowest team in the SEC in KenPom's Ole Miss at 57. So there's just not going to be a ton of easy games in the conference. You look at the Big Ten, which again, the top end talent's really good. They have 4 teams in the 100s in KenPom and another team in Oregon who's 83. So there's a lot more easy games in that conference. There's again the ACC top end's probably not much worse than the SEC's. But the bottom of the conference is way, way worse. And the Big 12 is not as traumatic. Utah's pretty bad. Cincinnati has not been great. The low end's still worse. It's not as bad as the Big 10, but I think that's where it gets to where from getting teams in the tournament, I think the SEC could still compete for the most. But when it comes to true national title contenders or games that you feel like, man, that's real marquee win or going to be a really, really tough game to get, there should be less of those this year than it's been the past couple of years, and less than it'll be in the Big 10 and Big 12.
Yeah. I agree with all that. I think you and I texted late last week. I was nerding out, and you may have been doing the same. I was watching the Iowa State game. Did you check that out?
I caught a little bit of the last handful of minutes of the game, but not the whole thing.
It just for me, it underscored that just what you were saying. I mean, I think the Big Ten's got kind of this tier with Michigan State, Purdue. I guess Illinois would fit in there too. And then after that, you've got some teams that could make some noise, like Indiana and Iowa. Iowa impressed me. Ben McCollum is. I'm a big fan of him and the white shirt and tie vibe he casts all the time. But there's some definitely good teams. There's some bottom feeders in the Big Ten as well.
Throw Nebraska ball in there too. Longest winning streak in the country.
About them. Yeah. And that, boy, did you watch any of that game by chance? Them in Illinois?
Yeah, I caught a decent bit of the second half.
Yeah, Nebraska's that's no joke, man. That's a good team. I'm glad you mentioned them. I forgot about them. So I think you look at those. I just feel like those teams. I made the comment a minute ago. Big 12, and there's it's not even close. I'm not sure that's the case, but I just feel like last year we could clearly say the SEC was so good that it was almost indisputable they had the best conference. And it's still going to be good this year, but it feels like maybe those other conferences have caught up a little in having a little more depth in their teams in terms of, maybe not half the conference sucks. It's, just a few teams. And yeah, I saw that score back to Mississippi State. I mean, Josh Hubbard can only do so much for that team, right? He can't shoot
Yeah.
like 70 times in a game. Maybe he could, but
He might try to.
yes, he might. By the way, did you see any of Arkansas and Queens College? Did you see the Queens College coach's sweater he was wearing?
No.
He okay. I mean, Arkansas. This is not a game. Arkansas won by like 30, but Queens College's coaching staff all had Christmas sweaters on,
Okay.
and their head coach had one that had like it was kind of one of those that was like 3D on his sweater. It was like a gift, and then on top of it, it said "Gangsta Rapper." Like
Oh, I did see that. I didn't realize that's who it was, but
Yes.
I did see that this morning on
Yeah.
the Everything app.
Queens College has a sense of humor, at least, because they got smoked in that bye game for Arkansas. But yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, former Queens College, former D2. They were in there with Carson Newman and LMU. They were in that same
Oh,
conference.
really?
Those were like the three for a while, the three best teams, and they've moved up, and not that they've done phenomenal, but they've done pretty well.
I saw the record was like 5-6 or something like that. Now 5-7. But hey, we talked about Gardner Webb and South Carolina State, who's left for the Vols. Those two teams have a combined one win.
Yeah, Gardner Webb got one over the weekend, which also Gardner Webb, welcome home, DJ Jefferson.
Oh my God! Wow.
They should let him do the one fly, all fly dunk for old time's sake. Bring him over to the other side of the court.
And also, I was watching some Penn State, Michigan State, because Penn State gave Michigan State all they could handle on Saturday, and Penn State's leading scorer, Freddie DeLeon, had 23. Although that's not a great team, but still.
He's played better. He's played well this year. He's been a lot more efficient offensively than he was last season.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like Freddie, who's averaging, I think, about 14. Cam Carr, who we've certainly talked about, averaging over 20. And then Tobe Awaka the other night. We didn't spend any time talking about that, but it's always good to see Alabama just see their game plan go up in smoke. I mean, Arizona. I think Arizona. We're going to talk about our top 5 in a second. Spoiler alert: Arizona is still my number one, just because of the caliber of teams they've beaten like a drum. But Tobe Awaka, what didn't he have like? Did he have like 14 boards in that game or something crazy?
15.
Yeah, he's averaging like a double-double. I mean, think of those transfers that were former Vols. That's a fair amount of productivity.
Well, I was laying in bed at like 1:30 last night after getting home from the game, and I couldn't fall asleep, and my mind was wandering, and I don't know how I got onto thinking about what Tennessee's roster would be if there was no transfer portal. I think I had the starting lineup of B.J. Edwards, Cam Carr, Nate Ament, Tobe, J.P. Estrella, and then you'd have Freddie DeLeon. You'd have the post would be kind of the issue. I guess you'd have Hanjay Tamba, who's still playing college basketball at St. John's, not doing much.
Yeah.
But on the team, and then I think it would be like all freshmen.
Yeah.
And I probably like DJ Jefferson would be one of the other guys. I'm probably forgetting some guys, but it'd be a pretty good team.
It would be.
Not amazing or anything, but would be good.
I always qualify when I see those guys, particularly DeLeon and Cam Carr. I mean, I remind people of they'd be good at Tennessee, but we would not get that kind of productivity from them under Rick Barnes. It'd be a different scenario altogether, I would believe.
Yeah, that recruiting class was so talented and Freddie ended up coming in a year early, so maybe he counts. Otherwise, but he signed with JP and Cam Carr, and it's really backed my theory that Tennessee is best off doing their high school recruiting of defense first guys the occasional guy like Nate you feel like can come in and make a huge impact offensively, and then trying to get offense first guys in the portal who just have a higher floor and already have an understanding it. In today's day and age where guys are going to be impatient with playing time, I think it's tough for a lot of these offense first guys to find a good fitting at Tennessee.
Yeah, there's kind of a corollary there between that and when I think of college football with the portal and quarterbacks, right? It's kind of that type of thing. So
yeah, it is, and it's you look at what the whatever the two recruiting classes would be, I guess 23 and 22, or maybe something like that with quarterback, and it's like 9 5-stars, and Arch Manning's the only one that hasn't transferred.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so part 2 of this, we've kind of given our thoughts on the conferences. We see the polls, but let's get our thoughts on who we think so far as we close out this calendar year. Who are the top 5 teams in college hoops so far? I'll let you start, Ryan.
Are we going to start at the top, or are we going to work? Let's start at the top. Let's start at number 1 and work down.
I think that's good.
All right, I have Michigan number 1, and I tried to find a little stat or point to go with these teams, and I watched a ton of the Maryland game. I just got so disgusted watching Kentucky, Indiana, which was terrible basketball on Saturday, that I ended up watching more of Maryland, Michigan. And Maryland played lights out in this game. And Maryland's not great, but Maryland played lights out. The game's in College Park. Maryland shoots 14 of 27 from 3-point range. Michigan still beats them by 25 or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
They run away with the game. And yeah, to 18 points, 101 to 83. And I was looking at it today. Michigan, second nationally in 2-point offense, first nationally in 2-point defense. There's not much else that's going to make you consistent night in, night out, be able to dominate, like not having to rely on 3-point shooting and being able to keep other teams from scoring at the rim. And Michigan truly doing an elite rate of that right now on both ends of the court.
Yeah, that's fair. I also think I'm beginning to think we've talked so much about Cam Boozer, and we will talk about him again in a minute, I'm sure. But Yaxel Lenderborg may be starting to get my attention as far as like a Player of the Year candidate. He had almost a triple double against Maryland, right?
Yes, yeah. Can't remember exactly what it was, but yes.
It was like a bunch of points too. It wasn't like just 12 or 13. He was in the high 20s and had I want to say double and maybe 9 assists or 8 assists.
9 assists, 8 rebounds to go along with 29 points on 11 shots.
Yeah, I mean he is scary good. So yeah, I mean it's tough to dispute who we would have as our, I already said my number 1 was Arizona, and I think I'm basing it on who they've gone out and beaten. Now they haven't beaten teams to the level that Michigan has. I mean, Michigan is just crushing teams. I think that 18-point margin of victory against Maryland is maybe that's the smallest they've had since they left for Vegas. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's you think about it. It had been 3 weeks since Tennessee had won a game last night, and so that's the same thing. It's been over 3 weeks, and however many 6-7 games they've played now since Vegas. So it's a decent sample size of them just crushing opponents.
I think that the key development for me with Arizona is if they get the kind of performance he's been good this season, but the performance Braden Burry's had against Alabama on Saturday, it's like that's a total difference maker for that team if they can get that 2 out of 3 games from him. He's former Tennessee target, right? Recruiting target. Yep. How far were we seriously in the mix on him?
Yeah, I would say if I was ranking it, I would say USC was probably runner up and Tennessee was third, but that was the clear top 3. Were those 3.
Man, he looked good the other night, and obviously,
and I'll build on that. He's 5 games now, last 5 games, averaging 19.8. I think he'd scored in double figures once in their 6 games or whatnot before that, and 28 against Alabama, 16 against Auburn. So he's played well in those 2 big games, and I have Arizona number 2. I really went back and forth between them and Duke as my 2 and 3, but what Burry's has done, giving a second punch in the backcourt with Bradley. Because I think Jaden Bradley's a good player. If he's got to be the only guy, the true number one and not like a 1A, 1B in the backcourt, I feel a little bit more nervous. But the trend with Burries, that gives him a little bit more 3-point shooting too, which would have been, a knock or a question mark for him. That's a development that, look, they were really good when he wasn't doing a ton. They'd beaten Florida. They'd beaten, had some really good wins. But now that he's starting to get it going, it feels like that just gives a different push.
Yeah. Yeah. So you and I flip flop. I've got, I put in my list Michigan as 1A. It's hard to say they're a number 2, but I mean, I give the slight edge, at least in my rankings, to Arizona. But I mean, obviously they're interchangeable parts, man. Those two teams are damn good.
Yeah, it's tough to knock much about either team.
Yeah. So your number 3 is, did you say Duke?
Yeah, my number 3 is Duke. Again, I've and look, last night was probably the worst game of the year. Lipscomb hung around with them for a while, but they've just, to me, been as steady as anybody else, and I think they have the best player in the country. I think they're as solid defensively as anybody in the country, and I think they're, as a pure team, that I think they're maybe the most well-rounded, or just know who they are more than anybody else, and just really, really love their floor, and think that they're just they just feel like a team that, and this should bode well in the ACC. They just feel like a team that, outside of like a Michigan or Arizona or maybe some of these top teams, it feels like anyone's going to have to play an A+ game on any given night. It doesn't feel like Duke's going to let you get a win with a B+ game against them.
Yeah. Duke comes up a little later for me, but everything you said is spot on. Again, what I'm skeptical about with Duke is just if they run into any sort of headwinds with Cam Boozer, but so far they haven't hit any of those, and when they have, they've managed it really well. So that's like you said, their floor is about as good as any of these teams we're talking about. For me, number 3 is Iowa State, and the reason I put them there is I think about their top. They have I believe 3 guys averaging in the 18 to 19 point per game range between Jefferson, Lipsy, and of course I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I always do. Milan, is it? Oh God,
I don't know. Double M. Mike Matthews. Double M.
Double M. Because I know the name and I've said it right many, many times, but if I don't have it in front of me, I will just crush it in a bad way. So, but I mean, those 3 guys just are so steady. And Otzelberger, we've been talking about teams with great defense. I mean, my God, man, when they get their defense going too, they're very, very tough to beat. But then offensively, they've been very strong this year. To me, kind of, I don't want to say uncharacteristically, but not as strong in past years offensively as they are this year. So for me, I just believe in Otzelberger, and I'm a big Iowa State fan. Now they're in that gauntlet of the Big 12, so that could be the challenge. But I feel we're kind of picking pieces and parts here that are all very interchangeable. But they're my number 3.
Yeah, they're my number 4, so I'm not far off with you at all. And yeah, no, the vibe I get from them is it's kind of like, in describing to what a lot of our audience is, it's kind of like if Tennessee had one of their peak defenses and still you threw a top 10 offense on top of it. And kind of you talk about their big 3, which I think is probably about as good as anybody's in the country. It's kind of like, to me, if Tennessee had gotten the more consistent Jonas Adu in whatever 2 years ago, 2014. There's not quite a Dalton Connect on this team, but when Tennessee was at their best that year, it felt like Zakai and Jonas were going to go for 15 on any given night, and grab a bunch of rebounds, have a bunch of assists, and you could have Dalton Connect go out and get 25 or something like that. And again, a little bit more well-rounded from those 3, but Double M and Joshua Jefferson, as you said, Joshua Jefferson's number 2 in Ken Palm's Player of the Year stats. And
really,
what he just does across the board, it's 17.5 points, 6.7 rebounds, 5 assists, and him and Lipsy being the 3rd guy in that mark. They have 2 guys that rank in the top 160 in assist rate, and you don't see that super often of two guys on the same team. So they have two guys that can create offense, facilitate. Lipsy at point guard does a phenomenal job taking care of the ball too. It's just a stellar defensive team, and it just feels like they're a well-run engine offensively, where you have three guys that can step up on any given night and play at a really high level.
Milan Momcilovic.
Okay. Monsilovic?
Yes.
Okay.
Or maybe Silovic. Momcilovic, but yes.
Yeah, one of the two.
Double M. We'll keep it at double M. And also, they also, because I saw this in the Purdue game, they have a shutdown defensive guard too, and Killian Toure. He
Yep.
like gave Braden Smith fits. That's a good team, man. They're a lot of fun to watch. That segues into number 4. You just mentioned you had Iowa State as your number 4. I'm going to sound like a little bit of a sheep coming from the state of Indiana. I've got Purdue as number 4, and part of it is because we're starting to see their front line play pretty well. That's what my rationale is. Oscar Clough is now starting to step up. Trey Kaufman-Wren was already very, very good. They get enough from Daniel Jacobson. To me, it's just it's about Fletcher Lawyer. If Lawyer, and he's been kind of sporadic at this point, and if Lawyer, who I know is one of your favorite players of all time, Ryan, if Lawyer can be consistent, then I think that team could win the national title, but he disappears. That's the biggest challenge I see with Purdue. But I think they're, top 3 guys right now, Braden Smith, Kaufman-Wren, and I guess it'd be Oscar Clough. I mean, they're really very, very solid. They're just on brand with Purdue basketball right now. And again, the loss to Iowa State was pretty chilling because, I mean, they got smoked at Mackey Arena. But I'd like to believe they'll build off that.
Yeah, and I don't have Purdue on my list. It'd probably be 6 or 7. And look, I think it probably speaks to more how good the top of the country is this year.
Right.
It's not that Purdue, who came into the year, I believe, number 1 or maybe number 2 in the AP poll and in most of the rankings. It's not like they've been much worse than I expected or anything like that. The one thing I would say is a knock on them, and I'll come off a little bit of a hypocrite as we get to my 5, but you just look at the teams that we've talked about to this point. Most all of them top 10, both offensive and defensive efficiency. Purdue 21st in defensive efficiency, and it's not that they're a bad defensive team.
Yeah.
I just don't think the ceiling there. They're gonna have to win these games with their offense. And look, they can do it. They're a very good team. Number 1 offense in the country at this point in the season, but they just don't feel like they have quite the balance. And again, to your point, a Lawyer, when he plays well, he changes a lot of it. But it feels like, even though they are very, very good and very efficient offensively, they lack a tad bit of a punch when Lawyer doesn't play well.
Yeah, that's all fair. And you're right. Their defense has never been a calling card like some of these other teams we're talking about. And, that's a difference maker come tournament time. So we'll see. But that's my number 4. I'll be interested to see who you have as your number 5.
Yeah, I went, I guess, a little bit out off the radar, but I have Houston. I still believe in Houston. Nobody's talked about them since the Tennessee game. And look, they haven't played phenomenal by their standards early this season.
Mm-hmm.
But I just trust them to get it figured out. I think they have all the bones of a top 5 team and a Final Four team. I'd say Chris Senac, that's the X factor. They need him. They need him to play well. They need him to give them some more interior offense. As good as Tugler is, is probably one of the 3 or 5 best defenders in the country. He's just not a great offensive player. He's not going to be as good offensively as Javon Roberts was last year. So they need Senac to step up, but that backcourt's really good, and I just have a trust level that they're going to get it right, and they're going to be right in the thick of that Big 12 championship race, and then a team capable of making a deep run in March.
Yeah. Well, my number 5, and we've talked about him. You had him, I think, as your 3, is Duke. And again, I think where I remain a little bit skeptical about the gauntlet of a long season and a tournament run. And I still feel like don't get me wrong, they're very, very good, and they've got a ton of talent. It just feels like it's Cameron Boozer and everyone else. And
Yeah.
I still wonder if something, I guess I'm doing this more in a precautionary mode. If Boozer ever, gets injured or fouls out of the game, I just don't know their ability to respond. Whereas some of these other teams could lose, maybe not their best player, but they could lose a good player and just kind of keep moving on. And Duke would still be quite good without Boozer, but that's why I've got them at 5. You said it so well about they've got maybe the best floor of all these teams. I just sometimes wonder if this is as good as it gets with Duke, and it's pretty good. Don't get me wrong, but I
Yeah.
still feel like maybe their headroom's a little more limited than some of these other teams we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair question about Duke, and there's just not another very ball dominant player on the team other than Boozer. So it just feels like a lot has to run through him. Two things. One on Boozer, there's 18 of these stats for individual players on KenPom, and they got if you're ranked you play enough minutes, you're ranked in the top 400. They have your ranking on there. He has the most. Ranks in the top 400 of all these numbers of 16 of the 18 categories. I'm not sure I've ever seen a player with that many. Nate Ament, it leads Tennessee with 8 of them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was just going to say is, to me, Dame Sauer feels like a big X factor for them. If they can get a little bit more offensively from him, I've kind of given up on the Caleb Foster experience. He was the guy that I was hoping could maybe kind of become that third for them. And look, maybe he does. I'm kind of giving up on that. So Dame Sauer is the guy that, if he can become a little bit more of a consistent double-digit scorer, he's shot the ball well. He's obviously a great athlete, and as a true freshman, he just seems like a guy that could get a lot better as the year goes on and he plays a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I buy all that. And I like Isaiah Evans a lot. So, I mean, again, it's not like I'm way down on Duke. I just, I do have a few concerns. And then for me, I had some, because putting a top 5 together in this type of scenario is tough to do. I'd say I gave them high honorable mention, and name kind of leading the list are UConn and Gonzaga. UConn, again, I'm still struck by how much chatter there is with UConn surrounding Braylon Mullins and his NBA readiness. And I mean, he's a nice player, make no doubt about it. But I'm just like, I don't know. But I mean, it's tough UConn's one of these teams that absolutely could repeat, and well, not repeat, but get a third national title under Danny Hurley. They're that good, but they have moments where they kind of flash and look very impressive, and then moments where they don't look impressive at all, and then the show becomes Danny Hurley melting down on the sidelines. So UConn and Gonzaga are the ones that I'd say are my high honorable mention. Gonzaga is like so refined. It's tough to kind of, pick against them, but there's just so many good teams right now. Those two are just right on the fringe of my top 5.
Yeah, I would, agree with that. I obviously said Purdue in there too. It almost, to me, and I don't know if I would truly divide it by tiers, but I think that my 1 through 4 of Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Iowa State, those 4 feel really close to me. And then it feels like, for me, a little bit of a gap. And then like a Houston, UConn, Purdue, Gonzaga, and that next kind of grouping.
I kind of, you mentioned Houston, and I haven't mentioned them. And I kind of feel like I've been kind of wowed by Michigan State, and it feels like they're kind of similar teams, at least in their kind of style of grit and, getting you in the mud, et cetera. And so I don't know if I had to pick between one of those two. I think for myself, I'd pick Michigan State. Houston's still very, very good, but it's interesting watching them manage the young guys. Like you said, Senak's really kind of a key for them, because Kingston Flemings has been everything and more that they probably imagined he could be. So now if they could get that from Senak, then that Kelvin Sampson could have them in a pretty dangerous level here come tournament time.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Michigan State's almost just kind of a better version of Tennessee is almost what I would say.
That's good.
Where really good rebounding, not going to be great shooting it, and then obviously really good defensively. Jeremy Fears, I was just looking at their KenPom page, first in the country, 52.5% assist rate. So he's playing at a high level, running the show for them offensively.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, as we wrap things up, just going into this weekend, we're about a week, little over a week away from Christmas, and some big matchups this weekend before we roll into that Christmas holiday. A bunch of ranked versus ranked opponent games. Number 8 Houston taking on number 14 Arkansas. I think I want to say that's another neutral site game.
It's in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Newark.
Okay. Prudential Center. Think we're going to learn a little bit about both those teams. That should be a war. Those two teams, kind of. I don't know. I was going to say conflicting styles, but they're more similar than you think. Arkansas is kind of hard to put a finger on what their style is right now, but they're good.
Yeah, for sure. And game I talked about Houston. That's the anyone's talked about them since the Tennessee game, and they played Notre Dame the next day, and they played Florida State, but they haven't played a ton of great competition since. So should be a good kind of re-up final test to see where they're at before they get going into New Year in Big 12 play.
Stephen Pearl and Auburn, number 21, they head to Indianapolis to take on Purdue, who we've been talking about. It's kind of a home game for Purdue, even though it's in Indy. That's only about an hour away from West Lafayette, so Purdue will have a great fan contingent there. Be an interesting test for Stephen Pearl.
Yeah, I can't imagine that one going well for him, but should go better than Arizona did.
Yeah, I would think so. Texas Tech and Duke. Number 19 Tech takes on Duke at MSG. Texas Tech kind of surprised me. I thought they were going to be. They're good. Don't get me wrong, but they've been. I thought they'd be a little better than what I've seen so far this year.
Yeah, I'd say they've probably been one of the more disappointing teams. It definitely feels like they're, entered the year contenders, one of the top teams in the Big 12, and obviously that top of the conference, as we've talked about, has been phenomenal. But they definitely feel like they're a little bit more in that second tier with Baylor right now to me.
Yeah. And then two games that are kind of wild cards, but I think they're noteworthy. Number 22 St. John's, they have a nooner on Saturday in Lexington against Kentucky. And let me tell you, I think you would say this too, Ryan. If Kentucky loses that game and it's not close, with Rick Pitino coming into town, man, Mark Pope, the wrath of that Big Blue Nation is going to be brutal for Mark Pope.
Yes, it is. The only small note that will make that better is the game is in Atlanta. It's
in Atlanta. I thought it was at Lexington. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
So that will. I mean, I'm sure there will still be more, Kentucky and North Carolina fans than anybody else, but that could help the scene be a little less toxic. But no, it's. And luckily, they won that Indiana game. Especially if they had won that Indiana game, we'll still probably get it. I'm sure Pitino will be doing some PR work for Pope going into the game.
Yeah, I've got a buddy who's a Kentucky fan I've known for a long time, and he's been so down on them. And then they beat Indiana, and all was right with the world, man. They hate Indiana. So, but reality comes back in the form of Rick Pitino this weekend. And then I think this is a sneaky good game coming up, too. Unbeaten, number 13 ranked Vanderbilt, highest ranked SEC team, right, at this point.
Yep.
They travel to Wake Forest, and for some reason, man, I think this could be Wake Forest could take them, I think.
Yeah, it should be probably their best test to date. Maybe when they went to UCF, this is the second week of the season. But yeah, it should be a tough one. They go to Memphis tonight too. So look, I think they'll be able to handle Memphis. But two true away games against a little bit more competent competition should tell us a little bit more about the Commodores.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, that was fun just talking about all this, man. And we are just getting started with college basketball. So that does it for this week. But we're going to take a little break heading into the Christmas holiday. In the meantime, though, thank you for watching and listening. We'll be back soon with another edition of the Rim Runner because we've got a gauntlet of conference play to cover in 2026, not only for the Vols, but also all the other action going on around the SEC and the country. And man, March will be here before we know it. As a reminder, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button for the show on YouTube. part of the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel. Download our podcast wherever you listen to your pods. Many thanks to all of you out there who make the time to check this show out. Ryan, thank you as always for all your great work, and look forward to digging in on all of this next year. I hope you have a relaxing and peaceful holiday. You certainly, you deserve a little break, man. You've been going hard.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it, and same to you and your family.
Yeah, thank you. And to all of you out there, have a great rest of the week, a great weekend, happy holidays, and we will see you next time on the RTI Rim Runner.